I knew I would get so many questions and texts about this issue, which is fantastic because it's all about educating you. We're going to get another lesson in a moment on recycling, a refresher, if you like, on what goes into what bin because there is confusion again. FOGO, having FOGO bins, some of you now probably has confused you a little bit. Also compostable cups and containers. We often get asked, what do we do with them? Where do we put them in? Vapes, people don't know what to do with used vapes. So I've got somebody here who's going to get you up to speed and answer your questions. Well, there was quite an interesting survey by a waste disposal company called Veolia, and it caught our eye because it found that every state is pretty rubbish at disposing coffee cups, vapes and biodegradable plastic bags. And apparently, according to this survey, you don't know what to do with dead animals either. And this survey also found almost all of you want clear signs on bins and products and packaging to tell you where to put them. So I think it's time for a little refresher. If you want some clarification on where to put something, which bin it should go in, call now on 1300 222 720 because I've got with me Brendan Doherty, who is the CEO of Resource Recovery Group. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks, Nadia.
Do these results from this survey, does that surprise you? Are people confused all over again about recycling?
It's not surprising. We have done a lot of surveys ourselves. And I guess the thing with the introduction of the 3-bin system, it does add a little bit more complexity. But generally we find that the recycling bin, which has been around for a long time, is generally the most complex thing which people deal with. And then FOGO just needs a bit of clarification, but it's essentially we're composting material, so it's whatever you would make compost out of, so it's relatively straightforward.
All right, well, let's look at some of the areas that cause confusion. The main one that seems to be coming up is compostable cups, compostable containers. I think you've got some there in front of you. What do we do with them?
Okay, the first thing with compostable containers and cups is you need to make sure that it actually complies with the Australian standard. So it should be stamped with a logo, and it should either say AS 4736 or AS 5810, and that tells you that it is genuinely compostable. And I think most cafes and outlets these days are actually moving to those products. So assuming it is a compostable product, it is compostable. The issue we have at the moment is that the system that we use for composting FOGO actually screens out material at about a 40 millimetre size. So we can't actually compost, we can't actually capture those cups. So we are telling people at this point to put them in the general waste. Otherwise, you may be able to recycle them at your local cafe, or if you're at an event and there's a provider who's bringing material to us and we know it's a large batch of these materials, then we can deal with that as a large commercial.
I have seen these bins at events. There's a little food markets that happens or had been happening near me, and they actually had one of those bins and it said, put your compostable cups and containers in here.
Yeah, and they're great because then you can have food and a whole range of other things with these compostable packaging materials, and then we know what it is and we can actually compost it commercially as a separate stream.
What about knives and forks, cutlery, spoons that are wooden? What do we do with those?
So we actually include them in our, if you have on your phone the Recycle Right mobile app, you'll see that bamboo cutlery is actually permissible in the FOGO stream, and that's because they will actually fall through the screen. They're small enough, and they're essentially like a woody type material, so they're just like putting some twigs and sticks out of your garden in there, and we can compost those as well.
Are you saying you do a lot of surveys as well about what people know and don't know about recycling? Just update us in regards to soft plastics at the moment, because they're not being recycled at the moment.
Yeah, so as we know, there's this soft plastic system that RedCycle put in place had to be terminated. I know that the supermarket chains are looking at getting that going again. We're currently telling people to put that in their general waste bin. So at this point, it will go to landfill, and later on this year, when we bring on energy from waste, then it'll actually be used as a fuel source. But other than that, there are technologies that can convert these materials back to the virgin plastics and be reused, but obviously they're still under development.
I have a question from a listener who says, what do I do with a dead rat?
Okay, so with dead animals, the rat in particular, it may well have eaten poison. So it's not the sort of thing that we would recommend putting in your curbside system. So if you contact your local council or your local landfill or transfer station, they should be able to arrange a special burial where you can take that wrapped in plastic, and they'll have a place where they can actually dispose of it in a proper secure facility.
Realistically, though, most people aren't going to do that. They're just going to go, it's a small rat.
We do say small animals are permissible, but obviously there is that risk with composting that it could be contaminated by a poison.
Okay, so most people are not going to do that. So what do you suggest that they do then? Are they going to just put it in landfill or in the green waste bin?
No,
it's not green waste.
It's not green waste, and obviously green waste. If it's a green waste bin, it won't have food in it or other materials. So we do recommend that it's really probably a question more for an environmental health officer in your council, because there is a risk, potential hygiene risk and a potential poisons risk. And yes, it's not necessarily convenient. You have to drive somewhere, but that's the best solution for it.
Okay, Brendan Doherty is my guest this morning, the CEO of Resource Recovery Group. Just giving you a little update on what to put in what bin, and I'm going to get to calls in just a moment. 1300 222 720. Vapes seems to be a big problem and a big cause of confusion. What do we do with vapes?
So vapes is a great example of the worst thing you can design and sell to the public. And unfortunately, there's currently no measures in place to actually recycle these products. I know that the West Australian Local Government Association is looking at trialling, collecting and breaking them down for recycling. You may be able to take them to a local drop-off facility through your council, where they normally take household hazardous waste. It's not currently in the list, but they may well take it off you and just store it safely while we're developing a way of pulling them apart. They contain batteries, they contain liquids, chemicals and residues, a whole range of things. So they are quite problematic, and they're a lot harder than dealing with conventional batteries because of the complexity of the item. But we are working on coming up with a program to recycle them.
And batteries you don't want in bins either.
No, batteries definitely. Batteries are a major risk, particularly lithium ion. You would have heard about fires in recycling facilities, that kind of thing. They can spontaneously combust. So there's lots of outlets to get rid of your batteries. You can take them to libraries, councils, where they sell batteries, and again, community drop-off facilities. There's lots of places you can take your batteries. So make sure definitely not in any of your bins.
Let's get to some calls. Brendan Doherty with me, answering your recycling questions. He's the CEO of Resource Recovery Group. Let's start with Peter. Good morning, Peter. What's your question?
Good morning. I was just sorry, I've got COVID, so I've got a bit of a croaky old voice.
Sorry to hear.
That's all right, I'm fine. What do I do with the aluminium pods for my coffee machine? When I had an espresso, I could give it to, I'd sometimes put in an espresso bag and bring it back to Karen and they would recycle it. Now I'm not really doing that, and I don't know where to put the little pod.
Okay, so if you can't take it to a recycler, then it would need to go into your general waste bin. If it's the sort of thing that can be pulled apart and you can separate the aluminium from the coffee, and if you've got time to do that, you could do that, and you could actually recycle the aluminium foil with other foil that you produce in your kitchen into your recycling bin.
Okay, Peter, there you go. Thank you very much, and I hope, we wish you a speedy recovery. Sue, good morning.
Oh, hi. We only have 2 aerosol cans in this family. One is the shaving cream and one is fly spray. At the moment, they go in the bin, the old bin, old-fashioned bin. But they take months to be used, so we wouldn't be doing much damage.
But you don't know where to dispose of them?
Well, we've just been putting them in the ordinary kitchen bin.
Is that the right thing to do? So thank you.
Okay, so with aerosol cans, so what we ask people to do is take them to a household hazardous waste drop-off facility. So there's a number of these facilities located around Perth, run by councils and regional councils. So you can drive there and you can drop them off for free. So you may have other things you can drop off at the same time.
So again, not in the recycling?
No. And
I've had this argument with so many people.
We used to take them, but the issue we had with fires when we compressed them, when we bale the metals, we were having explosions because of the residual gases. So what we're saying to people is you need to separate them and take them to a hazardous waste drop-off facility. And
you don't want them in landfill either?
We don't want them in landfill either.
All right, these are all really good questions. Keep them coming in, 1300 222 720. Hello, Margaret.
Yes.
What's your question?
Oh, Nadia, I just want to know, if you go into the front of most coal shops, you find a beautiful park bench made of plastic bags. And every Coles around where I live, Caversham, Midland, around, they all have one of these sitting in front of the shop. Now, if Coles can make those seats, why can't everyone? or manufacturers make them. They're great park seats, great in the parks, and picnic tables they could make if they can do that with the plastic bags. They say they use thousands and thousands to make one seat. So I quite believe that.
Yeah, but they're not doing it at the moment, unfortunately, Margaret. No, and thank you, because it was a great initiative, but it's costing them a lot of money.
Yes, so Mark, it certainly is possible to do that. The thing with soft plastics is they're very lightweight and low density, and there's a bit of a materials handling issue with it getting into a form where you can actually then compress them and melt them back into products. There is a technology which is being trialled in Victoria where it actually breaks it back down into the base oils, which is a better application because you can actually make a fuel, or you can actually use that oil to make new soft plastics for packaging. So that's probably a better solution. But for park benches, they tend to use more of the rigid plastic like old buckets and containers, that kind of thing. They're a little bit easier to handle.
My trolleys at my local Woolies are made out of plastic water bottles. Dave in Kelmscott asks, regarding recycling, what about cardboard milk cartons? Are they recyclable? He says there's a lot of debate in his house as his wife is adamant that the lining makes them not recyclable, and I've got people asking the same sort of thing when it comes to those Tetra Paks with stock or milk.
So yes, the linings on the cartons are not made of paper. So if they end up in the paper stream and they go in a mill, that lining will end up as a waste stream. So there's not strictly an avenue for it. However, it tends to end up in paper and in a paper mill, but the lining will create a small waste stream as a result.
But they'll get rid of that.
Yes,
there in the factory. Okay. Chris, good morning to you. What is your question? Hi, Chris.
Oh, good morning.
Oh, Chris was obviously doing his chores while he was waiting. Hello, Chris. You're on the air.
Good morning.
What's your question?
Oh, my question is this. In one council in which we lived, the instructions for recycling plastic was to look for the numbers 1, 2, 3 or 5 in the recycling symbol. I've not heard of that ever since, and I'm wondering if that is still the case.
Okay, so again, you can refer to the Recycle Right app, and it will basically say that all containers are recyclable, and we do take all containers. When we process them through the MRFs, we have optical sensors which separate the different grades of plastic, and if it's not a number 1 or number 2, it'll end up in a combined mix of mixed plastics, which then goes to a particular companies who shred it, clean it, and then they do further separation of those different grades for different products.
Okay. Chris, thank you for your question. I've got a lot of people like Mark asking about pizza boxes. No one knows what to do with them.
Okay, so pizza boxes, and I've got the app here, but I'm pretty sure the app says you can put them in the FOGO bin, provided that obviously and a little bit of food residue is okay. You can also, if they're perfectly clean, you could also put them into the recycling bin as cardboard.
Okay, they tend to have a little bit of oily bits on them.
So they're probably better for the FOGO bin.
Okay, there you go. So you've got options with that one. Cigarette lighters, a lot of questions about that.
Cigarette lighters are another difficult one. You could take them to you can either go back and talk to the retailers whether they actually take them back for a lot of these items, or you could try at your hazardous household waste disposal facility locally if they can take them and degas them and recycle them. They certainly do take large gas cylinders for that purpose.
All right. Now, this is a rather disturbing text. This is from Alex, who says, what do I do with old paint? I'm asking because a few months ago we took some to our nearest recycling facility, the local council one, and the staff there said, I'll throw it in the normal landfill bin, otherwise you'll have to pay a fee to leave it here.
That doesn't sound right because the household hazardous waste program is actually funded by the government, so they pay for the local councils run it, and paint is one of the first things we started taking back, and there is a genuine recycling program for paint, so you should be able to drop it off at no charge, provided it's not a large commercial quantity, at your local hazardous waste facility.
Off the top of the head, your head, Brendan Doherty, the CEO of Resource Recovery Group, what other items are part of that program that you can drop off for free?
So it's the sort of things which you can't put in your normal curbside system. So paint is a good example. Household chemicals, gas cylinders, those sort of things. Sally's
asking about oil, tin cans, those kind of things.
Yeah, so you can take oils back. things like motor oil, quite often they'll take them. They might not be part of the program, but they'll have an oil tank where they'll tip your oil in, and then they'll actually sell that oil to someone like Renault or whoever who will recycle it. So most of those things are recyclable.
And then I'm getting asked about cooking oil as well, and those big tins. What do you do with those big
cooking
tins?
Oil, again, you can take them back to one of these council drop-off facilities, and they should have a canister where they tip it in and reuse it.
Oh, Greg's got a good one. Good luck with this one. Greg, what's your query?
Just the COVID test kits. How do you dispose of them when you're finished testing?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Currently, they go into the general waste bin. So they'll be going to landfill, but ultimately with the new energy from waste facilities, it'll go into that for reuse as energy.
Brendan, finally, and thank you. They've been really good questions, and I feel like we probably need to get Brendan in again from time to time to go through some of these queries that you have. People are saying that there needs to be better labelling. Is there room to better label items, packaging, so people exactly know what to do with things?
There certainly is, and people would be aware that of greenwashing where false claims are made or misleading claims. So,
like something being compostable when it's not.
It's not actually compostable or complying with the standard. So there is a new system which has been brought out called the Australasian recycling labelling system, and it has been rolled out fairly extensively across Australia mainly through the supermarket chains. So look for that. Look for the labelling which tells you about its recyclability of the materials. And obviously, when you purchase, that's the time to make a decision maybe between one item or another in terms of what's going to happen to it when you're finished with it.
I think people need to do a bit of research. So some are saying that City Farm, for instance, which is a cafe across the road, does take coffee pods. So does Nespresso. They'll take any. I know that there's certain department stores that will take clothing and will give you like a $10 or $15 gift voucher for a bag of clothing. I know there's certain makeup brands that will take their packaging back. So we probably need to educate ourselves a little bit too, I think, don't we?
Yeah, I think the key point is a lot of retailers now are actually coming on board. So when you buy something, ask them, well, what do I do when I finish with it? And if they're a good one, they'll have a way of doing that. And also
product stewardship.
That's right. And also on the Recycle Right app, there is a to Z reuse, which gives you all of the items which you can take to reuse in op shops as well for information.
Good on you. Hey, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks very much, Nadia.
Brendan Doherty there. He's the CEO of Resource Recovery Group. Look, thank you. You've lots and lots of questions. We couldn't get to all of them. I promise you I'll get Brendan back in again, hopefully maybe in a couple of months.
Extra time.